My name is Sam Peters. I'm comprehensively great-looking, a natural blonde, and a highly intelligent one. I'm extremely tough, an exceptional journalist, and I hate modesty. I work for Uncharted. It's basically Playboy for scientists. Fewer naked women, fewer cars, more text. We report on excavations in, and expeditions to, the remotest corners of the world. The pay is, to be exact, pretty miserable. But you get adventure on tap, and that's the best bonus you could ask for. Although sometimes they're hairy, even for my taste. My latest trip took me to Indonesia, where local archaeologists had discovered an ancient temple complex in the jungle. Team members were disappearing one after another without trace. Turns out, it was terrorists. They kidnapped me. Then my old friend Max showed up and got me out of there. And here we are. He's off trying to get a whiff of the gang's plans. I'm supposed to inform the Indonesian authorities. Oh, and a volcano has now erupted and half of the island is in flames. I have no idea where Max is now, and I'm not going looking for him in this inferno. Anyway, it's supposed to be the man who goes through flames for the woman, and not the other way around. My task is clear. I have to escape from this island and bring help from the mainland. Done it. Now let's hightail it out of here. Crap. This inflatable dinghy is missing some, inflation. Reminds me of my last relationship. So how am I supposed to get to the mainland now? Doesn't show any sign of stopping. I hope Max is all right. What am I supposed to do? Blow it out? When Max came here with this boat, it was in a considerably better state. Damn blow-up boats. There's no air in the front chamber. The mortal remains of a crab. Definitely past its sell-by date as a food source, but that claw might make a useful tool. A completely typical Indonesian rock. I don't like to admit it, but this rock's just too big for me. Max is in trouble. I need to get to the mainland and find help. Looks close, but that's actually some hell of a distance. Swimming to the mainland is not an option. What the hell is Max stashed in this box? Locked. Maybe I can get it open some other way. My goodness. Max and his weakness for fancy locking mechanisms. Interesting mechanism. I'm sure that by pushing the switch, you can get Max's box open. I hope all the trouble's been worth it. Boots and socks. A satellite phone would have been nice. message in a bottle. This beach doesn't miss a single postcard cliché. There's a note inside the bottle. Unfortunately, I can't open the top. The bottle's broken into shards of glass. Shards are lucky. I can't translate this. It's either Indonesian or Malaysian. Almost sharper than me. They're too big for me anyway. I'll cut a piece of rubber out. The volcano's out of control. Whatever it is I'm doing here, let's do it fast. Looks like an arrow. Best be careful. It could be a trap. Nah, not interesting in the slightest. Not much going on there. I'll just take the one bone. The heat's so intense, this bush has caught fire. Please don't talk to me. I don't care what your name is. You're just a simple thorn bush, aren't you? I'll jam the piece of rubber between the claws. Nice idea, but I'd burn my fingers doing that. I'll jam the crab claw onto the end. Like roasting marshmallows. You have to know when enough's enough. Melted enough? Quite beautiful, also rather scary. Generally, more heat is better, but in this case, I'll make an exception. Bullet hole, those bastards. Laying my hands upon it is not gonna mend that hole. For your information, ignoramus, to filthy, damp places, soft rubber sticketh not. Let's clean away this grease and sand. Perfect. Nicely done. A stripped-down air pump. Let's get this dinghy back on the high seas. Now I can get out of here at last. I haven't phoned in for days. My editor will be going loopy. Home at last. First, I'm going to treat myself to a drink. And then I will listen to the 25 messages my charming editor has left for me. He sounds a bit miffed because I've only just got back from Indonesia. My excuses had better wait. He's already got a new job lined up for me. It's an important one by the sounds of it. Could be big for the magazine. I'd better not waste any time. Sure, a girl like me can find a new job really fast, but it still sounds like hassle I don't need. I'd best take the next flight to Berlin. I need to meet up with a Professor Hartmann. He heads up a research group at Humboldt University, and our magazine is one of the sponsors of his Africa expedition. It seems that our professor is hot on the trail of some scientific sensation out there. How often have I heard that shit? The sensation is usually some frothy bullshit that we can't even use to fill the summer news gap. Anyway, I'm clinging on to this job, which means I'm headed out to Africa with the professor at the next opportunity. I don't know exactly where we're going, so anything could be in store. And that is exactly what I love about this damn job. The Biological Institute. This is where I'm supposed to meet Professor Hartmann. The gate's locked.
Yes, can I help you?
Hello, my name is Peters. I've got an appointment with Professor Hartmann.
I'm sorry, but he's no longer in the building.
What? But he wanted to meet me here this evening.
According to our database, the professor is away on an expedition.
He's already set off? But I was supposed to be going with him.
Yes, well, not every department of this facility is as efficiently organized as the security department is.
Shit. My boss is gonna go bananas when he finds out I've missed this shot. What am I supposed to do now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Now I'm really in a jam. Could you perhaps pop along to Professor Hartmann's office and see if he's left a note for me?
If he had left you a note, then it would be here at reception, I'm sure.
Do you know exactly when the professor jilted me?
Just a second. It looks like it was this morning.
Do you know where the professor was headed?
No, but you could ask his secretary.
Great. Where is she?
Frau Mueller has already left for the weekend. She'll be back Monday morning.
Have you got her home number?
We do, but I couldn't possibly give out private staff details to members of the public. Be patient and come back Monday.
Patience is definitely not an option. No professor, no story. I need to find him as fast as I can. If I only knew where he was headed. Does Professor Hartmann have a cell number by any chance?
Doesn't look like it. We only have his office number here.
Could you perhaps imagine letting me into his office for just a mo?
If you'd like to know precisely, no, not in my wildest dreams. But I wish you a refreshing, stress-free weekend.
Same to you. With bells on. Looks like I'm gonna have to help myself. No gate stopped me before. I need to get into the professor's office to find out where he's gone. If I mess up this assignment, then that's my job out the window. Full to the brim with cartons and newspapers. Bio-waste. Certainly the right color. Wow, that stinks. A small rolled-up carpet. Has someone lost their faith? The first accessory for my sailboat. No. Without a very, very good reason, I am not going to touch that. No. The camera is covering the entire entrance. The doorman will be watching every move I make. Not a good idea messing about with the camera. The doorman would be onto me right away. Now let's see what's in it. There's a notice from garbage collection stuck on the letterbox. According to this, the BSR collects the waste paper first. Then another truck comes for the bio-waste. The bulky stuff goes tomorrow. The waste paper collection's been and gone. Damn it. Looks like it's home time already. The curbstone is full of chalk marks. Kids? No idea if this is relevant at all. I've just about got everything a girl could need in this little bag, but sadly nothing to wipe these markings away. Well, okay, but just this once. Where's it supposed to go? Sounds like a good plan. There's a notice from garbage collection stuck on the letterbox. According to this, the BSR collects the waste paper first. Then another truck comes for the bio-waste. The bulky stuff goes tomorrow. The Biological Institute. This is where I'm supposed to be meeting Hartman. Closed. Gotta be another way to get into the prof's office. Bio-waste. Certainly the right color. Wow. With immediate effect, this container now falls under the responsibility of the City Waste Collection Service. Unfortunately, not all of the walls in Berlin got ripped down. I know Berlin punks are finding new body parts to punch holes in every day, but I think we've some years yet before all-over body piercing comes into fashion. Although, with that security camera there, perhaps I could upload the result to YouTube and set the trend. Who am I kidding? I'm no punk. The Humboldt University Biological Institute. Not a good idea messing. The camera is but only so. I know Berlin punks are, although. The waste paper's empty. Nah, pushing empty trash cans is way below my preferred difficulty level. If I throw the carpet over the metal spikes, I could climb over easily enough. But then I'd be in full view of the security camera and the doorman would spot me. I need to find a better way. Now or never. Made it. Now I somehow have to get into the Institute and find Professor Hartman's office. Would seem to be the main entrance. Waltz into the building through the main entrance? The doorman would chuck me straight out. There's gotta be some more subtle way in there. A plastic box. That's what comes from leaving your tools lying around. Now, if that's not the most cutest abandoned rake. A poorly coiled hose. Damn, the clamp is solid. I can't get the hose off. Low walls, okay. 2 stories? Nope. I am not a world-class free climber. The window on the upper floor is open. The gardener would appear to give the weekend a higher priority than tidying up his tools. Good man. The perfect entry assistance. That's a horse chestnut. It was Tree of the Year in 2005. How do I know that? It says so on the little sign. The sign is fastened to the tree with 4 screws. Nothing's gonna happen without some tools. The coin's a bit too thick to fit the screws. Whoever said size doesn't matter was covering something up. This ladder, in particular, is way too short. Who needs a bolt cutter when head shears can do the job just as well? I've cut through the chains. Unfolded, the ladder's certainly long enough, but it's too flimsy to put weight on. I'll push the rake through the rungs of both of the ladder's legs. Still too unsteady. The rake could slip out from between the rungs if I climbed up it. Freedom for garden hoses! I'll tie the rake to the garden hose so that the whole thing becomes a bit more steady. That is a sturdy ladder. Well done, Sam. Climbing through windows. A real cat burglar, me. And look, the coast is clear. Professor Hartman's office. Won't open. This old trick might actually work. Or then again, maybe not. The idea's right, but the plastic money didn't take the strain. A snack machine. Each of these little calorie bombs costs a cool $1.99. No dough, no go. You only live once. I'll take a bag of crackers. My snack, and 1 cent change. The 1 cent coin is thin enough to unscrew it. Amazeballs! Ugh, I have sunk to a new low. On the thin metal sign, it says common horse chestnut, and the Latin name Aesculus hippocastanum. That'll work. I'll bet my sailboat on it. Phew. Okay, Sam. Find the damn info on where our perfidious professor's gone off to. And then maybe, just maybe, you'll get your story, a pay rise, and that nice little sailboat you're dreaming of. From algae to zygopetalum, there's everything a botanist's heart could desire here. I don't think that these books are going to help me further in any kind of way. The cliché that professors are not exactly neat freaks might well hold true, but surely this is taking it to the next level. Hartman really must have left in a hurry. A stack of homework, botany books, and writing materials. Thanks, but I don't think that they're gonna help me right now. There are some scraps of torn up paper on the top. There's some torn up paper on the top. I'll take a closer look. A ripped up fax. Now let's see if I can put this back together. His expedition party sent him a fax. They've discovered some hitherto unknown species. Great, but where, for heaven's sake? Unfortunately, there's only a code here. GHN 7531. But maybe that'll help me further. Files with details of students' projects and the prof's expeditions. Maybe I'll find a clue here. These files all have GHN on them. This file is marked GHN 7520 to GHN 7535. It ought to contain notes from the current expedition. Bingo. GHN 7531. The expedition has gone to Ghana, to Lake Basomtwi. So what the hell are they looking for there? Lake Basomtwi lies in the meteorite crater in Ghana's Ashanti region. It's 8 kilometers in diameter, about 80 meters deep, and doesn't have an outflow. The ecosystem and the lake are endemic, meaning there are lots of plant and animal varieties that are unique to that location. The priority is investigating the effects on the ecosystem of a massive meteorite strike. What's that on the fax? The expedition has discovered some previously unknown organism. If the story's big enough to pull the professor away with such short notice, perhaps it's big enough to buy me a boat. Let's hit the trail for Ghana and Lake Basomtwi. The flight to Accra via Amsterdam was pretty fuss-free. But the in-flight food was crappy, as expected. I was able to revive myself with some traditional fufu and a few Gordon Sparks in a chop shop before a bush pilot flew me into an airfield by Lake Basomtwi. With a bit of luck, I'll be at the base camp in a few hours. Looks like everyone upped and left in the night. Strange. I've got goosebumps all of a sudden, despite the heat. I'm getting something of a horrible feeling here. I'd better get a move on so I can reach the Lake Basomtwi camp before nightfall. Airport terminal, Africa style. A little bit too rustic for my taste. Where's the air-conditioned bar and duty-free shop? A limp sock. Reminds me of my ex. You know what? Enough of that. Hell, they've seen better days. Now then, any juice left in these at all? I should maybe give it a test. Come, gather round, and have the piss taken out of you by a crazy lady with a megaphone. Ooh, I like it. Lemonade. Sweet as shit and warm to boot. But even ice cold is not an option, if I want to avoid doing my figure some real harm. Well, okay, I'll take it with me. But be aware that this is non-alcoholic piss water. It's certainly seen better days. Yarr! Sorry. It's screwed tightly to the column. Not a multifunction tool, just a simple pocket knife without the gimmicks. The pocket knife only has this one blade, but it's extremely versatile. I can unscrew screws with it, for example. Sits around all day. Probably shows up for food and fondling. Men. Just two admittedly unfortunate words. Cat allergy. Crates of provisions. Well, I'm not gonna starve to death here, that's for sure. I'm not that hungry yet. Looks like a reliable enough contraption. It clamps two ropes together. Okay, I've caressed the screws. Now what? Okay. Hey, Dixie. Now what would those Southerners say if they knew there was a mobile toilet named after their hymn? Holy shit. If a dead fish and a tramp had a baby and the baby threw up into a dog's mouth, the dog's end product would smell better than this toilet does. Even if I had to, I would not go in there. The camp lies northeast from here. That's where we want to be headed. Where's that perverse stink coming from? Oh, right. Pumbaa. They may be cute in cartoon form, but in the real world, those warthog tusks should not be underestimated. As long as that hog's eyeballing me, I really don't give a damn about the tree trunk. Okay, away we go. Sing Hakuna Matata for me, then! Since we don't know each other all that well, I'm gonna be keeping my distance, okay? Great. He seems to be quite unaffected. I guess that act's only good for scaring off lechers in bars. And here's me thinking I had the act down pat. I suppose compared to most men, this pig is smart enough to tell the real thing from a crazy lady making cat noises in the jungle. The craft of writing my ass. A voice recorder gets a more natural interview every time. Hello, Mr. Kitty. How about an interview? Thank you for the profound discussion. I'll hold the megaphone close to the voice recorder speaker. Perhaps the pig's got a cat allergy as well. Pity. Apparently not. Now I'll put the used batteries into the voice recorder. Perhaps the pig's got a cat allergy as well. Success. I don't need a walking stick quite yet, but hey, you never know. Straight and long. Could be useful. Ants. I must have scared him up. Just like in the adventure movies. So, what do we have? Great. The guide rope on the right-hand side of the bridge is broken. That's all I need. I can't get across with it like that. I need to repair the rope first. A prime example of a professional bodge job. It's really quite miraculous that this has stood here as long as it has. There's a tool bag hanging down there. I hope nobody left it there when they took the express route to the bottom. The bag's hanging too low. I can't reach it. I'll pull out a thread. In fact, this cap is such a waste of space, I'll throw the rest away. Looks like a rod, with neither a hook nor bait. One long hook thing coming right up. Come to mama. Well, what have we got here then? Leads to the camp. First, though, I have to cross this ravine. Looks like a wrench, and in fact is a wrench. The wrench fits. Now, let's just hope the mast doesn't fall when I remove the connector. How about that? Rope connector gone, mast still standing. A woman needs a little luck sometimes. If I ignore the busted guide rope and try to... joins two ropes or cables together securely. Let's see. This can't be all that difficult. That ought to hold. Whoa, what a mess. Who did this? Hello? Professor Hartman? Strange. No one here. What the hell happened? I had to take a look around. A four-legged stand. I ought to leave the stand where it is. Won't be attracting much interest on the local real estate market. Trespassing here is not prohibited, just impossible. A four-legged stand. A four-legged stand. Interesting storage method. That's how you keep your grub away from the hungry fauna. If I had a jetpack, then maybe. The floorboards look pretty rotten. You want me to get a wood splinter? Even if the floorboards look rotten, you need something a little more heavy-duty than a manicured fingernail. What I'd really like to know is what threw this great big locker all over the place. Feels kind of locked. A pipe. That's all I have to say about that. This winch holds the crate hanging from the cable. The crank is missing. The wrench fits, but I don't have enough muscle power. The winch isn't moving an inch. The wrench fits inside the pipe. The laws of leverage are your friends. I'm so excited. There must be something really cool in there. My favorite occupation, plundering. Mostly fruit and veg. I'll leave that here and take everything else. Feels kind of locked. It fits. A laptop for outdoor use. Fully ruggedized. Well, it survived whatever hit the hut completely unscathed. Another movement sensor. A first aid box. How useful. A letter? According to the sticker, that's Professor Hartman's laptop. Sadly, though, the battery's flat. The mobile solar charger has to be assembled before it can be used. Bearing in mind I don't like puzzles, I've rather nailed that one, haven't I? Dry wood. Should burn well. There's a fireplace here, but it's stone cold. I'll connect the solar charger to the laptop. A genuine sun trap. These rocks are getting hot in the sun. I'll put the laptop and the solar charger here in the sun. The perfect place. Ugh, the laptop's protected by a code. The professor received this letter from his wife on their wedding anniversary. Turns out married, middle-aged people have very little of interest to say to one another. A strip of adhesive tape. It's stuck pretty fast. I need something to scrape it off. Might leave a scratch, but the ends justify the means. Is that just the manufacturer's logo? It looks like wedding bands or something. Looks like some kind of diary. Sounds promising. Viruses that are responsible for evolutionary leaps? That story would be an absolute scoop. Now, is there any truth to these ghost stories? Shit. Looks like it's quite possible they're close by here. I need to be careful. At least I now know where I can find the professor. Only now all that's missing is any clue to where this Christian mission is. No saved mail. And if I was going to send or receive any, then I'd also need an internet connection. This is where Hartman saved the pictorial info from the current expedition. The map of the camp. A map of the region to the south of the Basumtwi. Aha! That over there to the west has to be the mission that Hartman wrote about in his notes. Even the most ambitious scientist has to switch off every now and then. Can't wait to see what kind of music the prof's into. No forecast without the internet. And I don't need a laptop to see how the weather is right now. It doesn't make sense to set off for the mission now. I don't want to be wandering about in the jungle after dark. I'll spend the night here in the camp. Chasing after our scientists will have to wait until tomorrow. I'll set up the motion sensors and build a nice big fire to keep the beasties at bay. Now, I ought to make a fire. It'll keep me safe tonight, from the cold and whatever else is out there. Now, there's pretty much nothing to stand in the way of a comfortable evening. Much more practical than rubbing sticks together. Let's get cozy. The working range of this sensor is 160 degrees. I'm thinking that the sensor belongs on top of the stand. A sensor with a working range of 90 degrees. I'll try it with another sensor. This sensor has a working range of 75 degrees. I'm thinking that the sensor belongs on top of the stand. This sensor has a working range of 120 degrees. On the sensor it says working range 90 degrees. I'm thinking that the sensor belongs on top of the stand. I'm thinking that the sensor belongs on top of the stand. Looks like the sensors are set up according to plan. There. All done. Now I'm gonna get some shut-eye. And in the morning, I'll head to the mission and track down this research team. What are they? Animals? Nasty. I need to scare them off somehow. This is getting really weird. Those red eyes. There must be more than a dozen of them out there. Perhaps I can find something to scare them off before they realize my fire isn't so scary after all. Like hell I will. I'm staying right by the fire, no mistake. Not exactly the best of the best, but it can take a usable picture and the flash is top-notch. Maybe it'll give them a fright. They're gone. Hopefully they're gonna stay gone too. It won't be too long now until sunrise. What a night. I never got back to sleep. What were those things? Hey, maybe I caught them on camera. What the? In all the horror movies I've ever watched, I've never seen anything like this. It's a westerly direction to get to the mission. Professor, I'm on my way. The mission. At last. Hello? Anyone home?
God be praised, my child. What can I do for you?
My name is Samantha Peters. I'm looking for a group of scientists. Their leader is called Professor Hartman. According to the notes I found in their camp, they were headed here before they disappeared.
Yes, the men you're looking for arrived here yesterday.
Finally, I've caught up. Can you take me to them?
Unfortunately, that's not possible. They are in quarantine.
Quarantine?
They are very ill. They have high fevers and are unresponsive. Nobody is allowed near them until the doctor gets here. We want to avoid any possible spread of the disease.
Can't I at least have a brief talk with Professor Hartman? It really is very important.
The professor isn't here.
Not here? Where is he?
If I've understood the men correctly, they were attacked at night and the professor was taken away.
Damn it! Do you know who attacked them?
You have to go now, my child. It is not safe here when the darkness falls.
What aren't you telling me? What is it that you're so afraid of? I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what's going on here.
Child, I just want to protect you. If I let you in, you could become infected. And outside, you are not safe from the...
Yes, not safe from what? In the scientist's notes, it says that one of them was attacked by some animal species he didn't recognize before he became ill.
That was no animal.
Well, what was it then? For Christ's sakes! Oh, forgive me.
Our Father, who art in heaven.
Listen, sister. You will now talk, or else I will break the fifth commandment. Who ambushed the scientists and dragged off the professor?
They come from above. The trees.
Locals? Rebels? Hunters?
No, not humans.
Well, what then? Not animals? Not humans? Aliens, perhaps?
The Asambosam.
Asambosam? Never heard of him.
Ancient Ashanti legends tell of strange nighttime beings that lurk in wait for their victims among the boughs of the trees. They pluck unfortunate souls from the ground using their long, sharp claws and then drag them off to their caves where they then suck the blood from their victims' bodies.
So what does your boss have to say about your believing in such blasphemous scare stories?
Scare stories? When you have lived among the Ashanti as long as I have, there's very little that appears unbelievable.
Let's reel this conversation back in from the nether regions of God's asshole and stick to the facts. I shot this photo last night. This little freak was one of a whole group sitting in the trees above me. Might this be one of your Asambosam?
Holy Maria, Mother of God, you can count your blessings that you are still alive, my child.
So these freaks really have schlepped off the professor then? Suppose it's true. Where would the Asambosam take their victims?
Into their caves.
I got that bit. Where are they exactly?
My child, you really don't want to go there.
Yes, I do. There's one hell of a... Sorry. A real scoop of a story there for sure. And I just might be able to save the professor while I'm at it. That is, as long as these things haven't sucked him dry already.
Then I really won't be able to stop you, my child. Wait here a moment. This will be a great help to you on your reckless undertaking. Take it.
What is it?
Some intense studies of the Asambosam and Ashanti legends.
Thanks.
May the Lord watch over you.
This is where the notes begin. So there were already patients at the mission with the same symptoms as the scientists. So were these men under attack from the same creatures? Let's see. Here it is. The attackers came out of the trees and surrounded them. Interesting. There had also been similar cases in the past. The locals call the attackers the Asambosam. They're also supposed to be responsible for transmitting a virus. The old Ashanti shamans were able to control these mysterious beings and could protect themselves from the disease. The priest found himself in great danger on his quest for the antidote. The Asambosam exist. Now it's gonna get interesting. Ugh, such a lot of text. The priest stumbled across one of these Asambosam and followed him to a cave. translation of the inscriptions at the cave entrance brought something astonishing to light. It detailed a description of a ritual which could protect against catching the Asambosum disease, and which could also cure it. They carried out the ritual, and despite no ready explanations for how, it worked. These experiences really rocked Father Samuel's concept of the world. This is where it lists what you need for the ritual and how to carry it out. It's incredible. I suppose I have to accustom myself to the notion that the Asambosum may not be pure fiction. The priest's very convincing. Unfortunately, he took his knowledge of the route to the cave to the grave with him. At least I now know how I can protect myself from the Asambosum disease. When I find out where they're hiding, I still might be able to rescue the professor. Oh, a loose page has fallen out. It's blank. Sister Josephine, 1852 to 1904. Here rest her bones, and for the first time, alone. Cheeky. Nothing good comes from interacting with gravestones. Julius, 1767 to 1832. Here lie my mortal remains. I just wish they were yours. That's terrible. Billy, 1907 to 2006. Only the good die young. Either he had a low opinion of himself or a wicked sense of humor. On the gravestone it says, J.H.M. Excuse me for not standing up. Must have been a proper gentleman. Or a Groucho Marx fan. Father Samuel's grave. Strange. No epitaph, no date of birth, no date when he died. Just the name. Oh, and 9 curious symbols chiseled into the stone. Looks like lines and trees. Great. That lets me transfer the symbols onto the paper. The pencils had it. But I've now got perfect copies of the 9 symbols on Father Samuel's gravestone. An empty clay bowl. Who left this here? I've transferred the ornamentation from the gravestone onto the paper. Okay, I'll carefully cut out the different symbols. I can't exactly say I'm crazy about puzzles. the route to the Assambosum's caves. Not much to look at. Star lily. Very pretty. One blossom for my hair, one for the ritual, and one to stamp under my feet as an expression of rebellion. Looks like the Goethe plant. I'll pluck myself a blossom from it. I ought to concentrate on the plants I need, as listed in the diary. I ought to concentrate on the plant. I ought to concentrate. I ought to concentrate. I ought to con. That has to be rose herb. I need a stalk from it. I ought to concentrate on the. I ought to concentrate on the plant. A few stems of alyssum also need to go in the pot. I ought to concentrate on. I ought to con. One blossom from the hyacinth is enough, according to the diary. The Assambosum's caves must be near here. Hopefully the professor's doing all right. Lukewarm, sugary sweet. Let's decant this delicate brew. A broad paintbrush. The lemonade's too thin to apply to a paintbrush. Not gonna work like that. Not gonna work like that. The lemonade's too thin to apply to a paintbrush. A bowl of lemonade. Home economics is for housewives. Boiling the lemonades produced a thick, sticky syrup. That should work. Gotcha. The ant stuck to the brush. Almost too easy. I had to give it a go with chopsticks. Gotcha. One more. A respectable kill. Peters, the big small game hunter. I'll check the first aid kit. The entrance to the caves, and no sign of the professor. I'd better go in and take a look. After carrying out the written instructions for Father Samuel's protection ritual, of course. I have absolutely no inclination to go catching hideous jungle monster disease. The pot's empty. Let's not get greedy. I've got the clay bowl already. And in it goes. And in it goes. Pure alcohol. Five, the number of love. And in it goes. The lemonade is boiled down to a thick, sticky syrup. So, that ought to be all the ingredients. Let's see what happens. Ugh, the way that stinks, just the smoke could keep pretty much anything away from me. It's actually here. Weird. There are no birds, no animal calls. Even the bats seem to be frightened to make a rustle. Whoa, was that one of those things? A mask with eyes, mouth, and some kind of war paint. Even more passages. Really does seem to be more extensive than I first thought. There's a mask hanging on. Looks different from the other rocks. What is it? It's like some kind of graphic novel. The story begins with a man choosing children from a large group. They follow him into a cave, and the door closes after them. The children continue to live there while the man teaches them to fight. The man also gives them food, and so the children gradually grow into men. But what is that? The children seem to change on the way. Their arms become longer, and they get great big fangs like predatory animals. Pretty gruesome. A lump of resin. Supposed to burn like tinder. Let's fuel this lamp and see what happens. The resin's burning. The poor children. If I only knew how they were changed, they'd make the story of the century. Perhaps the professor knows the answer. If he's still alive. The poor children. Perhaps the professor. Another of those lamps. I feel like it's there for a reason. Best leave it alone for now. Let's fuel this lamp and see what happens. The poor children. Perhaps. The lamp's focusing the glow from the burning resin onto the cave wall. I should take a closer look. The poor children. Perhaps. But was that an animal? Or a human? Or... Let's fuel this lamp and see what happens. This mechanism with the 5 stone wheels would appear to open the door in this room. Let's fuel this lamp and see what happens. The poor children. If perhaps the professor... Let's fuel this lamp and see what happens. Nothing. Professor! Those damn creatures. I have to drive the Asambosum away to be able to get to the professor. I wouldn't like to make myself any more obvious to the Asambosum. I don't think the ritual protects me from being eaten alive. Things are getting tight here. The battery's almost empty. Herr Professor! Professor Hartman, can you hear me? He's obviously in some considerable pain. I'm not going to be able to move him until those wounds are patched up and he's feeling better. There are still a few painkillers left. Here, get these down, you prof. Healthy he's not. Gauze bandages. Now all that's missing is someone to bind up. That should keep the blood off my clothes, and, broadly speaking, inside him, At least until I get him out of here. That will have to do until we get back to the mission. Don't worry, Professor. I'll get us out of here. Hey, Professor. You look considerably less shit than you did when I found you 2 days ago. Welcome back to the land of the living.
Thank you for the expressive compliment. The sisters have looked after us quite devotedly. And of course, my deepest thanks to you for your getting me out of there, Miss...
Peters. Sam Peters.
Ah, and you are the journalist. Please forgive me for setting off without you, but the situation left me with no other choice.
Forgiven and forgotten. If you give me the story as promised.
Of course.
So you have a few minutes for me then?
Take a long look at me. Do I look like I've got anything else planned? I'm just not entirely sure that I'll be able to give you all of the answers.
Let's find out.
You want to know what the Asan Bosam are?
Spill it, Prof.
They are humans, I'm sure of that. Did you see the wall paintings in the caves?
Yeah.
The Ashanti were always a very secretive people with an extraordinary bond with nature. As with all native peoples, their living space also forms the basis for their existence. They naturally defend it with every means at their disposal. At some point, the Ashanti shaman must have realized that they would not be able to defend their lands indefinitely from outsiders. They therefore trained up some quite exceptional warriors.
The ritual that's shown in the cave paintings.
Correct.
But those things don't appear to be human in any way. What happened?
Well, it happens that there is a particular species of snail, which is incidentally the reason we were here at Lake Bosomtwi in the first place.
Whose genome has changed through eating the algae brought here by the meteorite.
Yes, exactly. The algae may have been carrying a virus, which, over a relatively short period of time, triggers a rapid genetic mutation in a species. There are supporting cases. On the Indonesian island of Flores, they found the fossilized remains of a very small but adult human who was a genetic successor to Homo erectus. All evidence suggests this subspecies of dwarves evolved in only a few generations as a result of their isolated environment and in response to the narrow, low-ceilinged cave systems of the region.
An unbelievable evolutionary step.
Relative to conventional evolution, this process really did take place at the speed of light.
As with the Asambosam.
Possibly. Perhaps, as with the snail and the algae, the virus is the explanatory factor across all these examples.
How far does this go?
Perhaps the shaman knew that the algae possessed some form of mutational capability and raised his warriors on it. The terrifying result you've witnessed firsthand.
Then these warriors are designed with the sole purpose of keeping outsiders like us away.
That is my interpretation, yes.
And what about this disease they carry?
That, alas, is one of the questions I cannot currently answer. The Asan Bosam themselves appear to be immune to it. Perhaps it's a further defense mechanism.
Do you think that they killed anyone?
No, at least not directly. The evidence so far suggests they were designed to keep potential aggressors at bay, not to actively eliminate them.
So what now? As snail research goes, Professor, this story is more sensational than most.
That may well be the case.
But?
The shaman and the Ashanti have only been acting in the best interests of their people and in perceived self-defense.
And that justifies their turning children into monsters?
We don't have to approve morally. But does morality apply in the case of survival? Doesn't every nation do reprehensible things every day in the name of survival? Clearly, we are not the first Westerners to come here, and I doubt the intentions of all such visitors are as benign as our own. In this special case, I have to ask myself, even as a scientist, is knowing the answers more important than doing the right thing?
Answers are what we're paid for.
Then I hope never to see the day that we run out of questions. Do what you think is right.
So, I have to make a decision. Should I go ahead and publish the story? I simply didn't have the heart. May a cloak of silence remain forever over the existence of the Asymbosum. Freedom really is so much more important than anything else. Talking of freedom, that's something I can also enjoy limitlessly, though sadly not on my little sailboat. When I got back to Hamburg without a single line of copy, my editor flipped and bounced me back onto the street. Whether or not he managed to get over the small heart attack that followed, I'm afraid I don't know. And frankly, I don't give a damn. It's time for me to drop by on Max in Berlin again. Perhaps he'll finally even introduce me to his beloved Nina. From the way he went on about her in Indonesia, I don't think they'll be apart for too long. And maybe he'll have a fabulously lucrative job for me and get that sailboat back on track. In retrospect, publishing the Asymbosum story really wasn't such a good idea. At least, not for the Asymbosum themselves. There was a gold rush. Scientists, journalists, tourists, even big game hunters. The military looked on and did nothing. The few game wardens were helpless. When mass demonstrations back in the West finally delivered human rights for the Asymbosum, it was almost too late. But at least the last Asymbosum had been freed from the clutches of unscrupulous zoo owners and show people. They've been moved to rehabilitation stations, where they're being prepared for their return to their original habitat. The Bosumtwi has been declared a World Heritage Site and Nature Reserve, monitored by an international protection force. Oh yes, and as for me, well, the story made me a small fortune, some amount of fame, and a not-so-small sailboat. In fact, a vast one. So, not such a bad ending after all.